Ali, thanks for coming on, my friend. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. Great to be with you.
Yes, great to see you again. So, uh, I've talked to you a lot over the years, trying to understand what's happening in Iran, report on it, and make people aware of really the situation. We're going to talk about something today, which really is not out there much, and that's possibly arming the resistance. Give us a history of that effort that most people don't know. If you could, and maybe the elevator pitch on that.
Well, I'm glad that you are dealing with this issue because, as you have, I have also read a lot of commentary by people in Washington and elsewhere, including, for example, Senator Cruz, Senator Graham, even the Wall Street Journal the other day had an editorial that the Iranian people must be armed and the Iranian resistance must be armed. In a bit of, if you will, a twist of history, the MEK, the Mujahideen Khalq, the main Iranian opposition group, had a standing army just across from the Iranian border, a division-strength mechanized army, which of course had carried forays into Iran, including the fateful 1988 assault on Iranian territory, combating 200,000 Revolutionary Guards and the Basij in Kermanshah. They got to the gates of Kermanshah, about 15 miles short of the city, and of course they were thwarted by the Iranian Air Force and the Air Aviation Corps because they didn't have any air cover.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, in the aftermath of the occupation of Iraq in 2003, at the behest of some bureaucrats and appeasers, and as a goodwill gesture to the Iranian regime, this army was disarmed, and according to a CENTCOM statement of May 17, 2003, they handed over voluntarily 2,113 tanks, artillery pieces, armored personnel carriers, and a whole host of other weaponry that they had. Now, just imagine if that army had not been disarmed, what the situation would be now, or even before, like in 2009 when there was a nationwide uprising, or 2020, or 2017, 2019, 2022. The whole parameter would have been different. But be that as it may, quite frankly, we believe that the ultimate solution to the current crisis that the Iranian regime is causing is to overthrow it, but not through foreign intervention, but by relying on the forces that are within Iran. And in fact, ever since those times, the resistance has continued its organization within the country. Since 2017, it has formed what we call resistance units, who are very active. Just to give you a glimpse of how well organized they are, 5 days before Khamenei's headquarters were targeted by the US bombing, on February 23rd, a 250 assault force of the resistance units, in a sense, a liberation army within Iran itself, launched a daring assault on Khamenei's headquarters, and it penetrated it through several layers of security. Some 100 of them were either killed or were detained by the forces that protect that facility, 8,000 of them, but 150 managed to withdraw. And we have given the names of 82 of them to the UN, including 2 cameramen who accompanied the team. And so this goes to show that as we speak, there's a potent force within the country that can challenge the IRGC. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. And for it to continue its activities and also escalate it, you need to have some recognition, some political recognition, that the Iranian people have the right to use whatever means available to them to confront the IRGC and this brutal regime. And so this is, I guess, our approach to the situation right now, because if history is a judge, war ultimately is not the answer. You may destroy or devastate some structures, some decapitate some folks, but at the end of the day, that would not result in stability. The case of Iraq is a very good example. The case of Libya is a very good example. And of course, now, who knows where this war will lead. So at the end of the day, I think that the more prudent and realistic policy would be to stand with the Iranian people and the organized opposition within the country.
So the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, is like an oligarchy. Tell people how they really have raped the country. I mean, and is really, abusing the natural resources. For instance, the water, taking them from the people. I don't think people really understand what this IRGC actually is. Could you explain that, please?
In the aftermath of the Iran-Iraq war, the IRGC became more than just a military force, a huge business conglomerate, an empire, if you will. Mm-hmm. There are 14 major economic powerhouses in Iran that are basically controlled by the IRGC. They have the control of roughly 60% of the Iranian economy. They control the oil, they control the water, they control the gas, they control the power, they control transportation, pharmaceutical, agriculture, you name it. And so when the West does business with the Iranian regime, it is doing business with the IRGC. They are in every facet of Iranian life. Majority of the members of the Iranian parliament are IRGC commanders. Many of the ministers are the IRGC commander. This fellow, Abbas Araghchi, the current foreign minister, is an IRGC officer. The secretary for the Supreme National Security Council, who is now, as you know, is basically a caretaker for the government because Mojtaba Khamenei is nowhere to be found. He himself was an IRGC brigadier general. Then he ran the Iranian state television for 10 years, then became the Speaker of the Parliament for 8 years. And so many ministers of this regime are IRGC. Even the former President Ahmadinejad was an IRGC officer working with the Quds Force. So, as I say, IRGC has penetrated deep into every aspect of Iranian life, its economic life, its political life, its cultural life. And that is the force that we have been fighting for so many years. And until and unless it is destroyed and dismantled, any prospect of change in Iran is unattainable.
So what would you say to people who are, there's a lot of narratives being created out there. One of them is that, okay, we've destroyed a lot of the regime. It's now up to the Iranian people to do their thing and not Western troops. What would you say to that?
I think in some sense, that's a correct approach, that at the end of the day, change must come from within Iran by the Iranian people. But I think there's a lot that the international community, the US, the Europeans can do that they haven't done. For many years, the prevailing policy was to try to deal with the mullahs, whether it was through sanctions or whether it was through political and economic concessions. The idea was to bring them to the table. Well, they have proven that they are not going to change their behavior. Araghchi told CBS on Sunday that they're not going to give up their nuclear stockpile, the 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, and they're still funding the proxies across the Middle East. And you have seen now they are firing their missiles and their drones all over the region against the very countries in the region that were quite amicable to the regime and worked with it for many years. Even Oman, which was the go-between as far as the nuclear talks are concerned. So that is what needs to be done. And when we speak about the specific action, on February 28th, a few hours after Ali Khamenei, was eliminated, the NCRI announced the formation of a provisional government based upon Mrs. Rajavi's 10-point plan, with which you are quite familiar. It's a very Jeffersonian plan. And basically, this plan calls for holding free and fair elections within 6 months of the regime's overthrow. Now, there must be, from our perspective, a full-throated statement of support for this provisional government. And of course, that would not only encourage the people affiliated with the NCRI within Iran, to carry out what they need to do, but also encourage the Iranian people that after 100 years of foreign countries siding with dictators in Iran, that they are understanding that the real owners of that country, the rightful owners of that country, are the people of Iran. And I think this is the correct path moving forward. And may I also say that when we speak about the NCRI, when we're speaking about the MEK, we're not talking about an exiled group. We have deep roots within Iran. We, for 60 years, have fought against two dictatorships, the Shah's regime and, of course, the mullah's regime. And along this path, we have had 100,000 of our members and sympathizers executed by these mullahs, including 30,000 in the 1988 massacre. And as we speak, actually, there are dozens of members of the resistance units on death row in Iranian prisons right now. And of course, you saw that on February 23rd, in the daring assault on Khamenei's headquarters, which unfortunately Western media, the legacy media, didn't cover, the MEK lost, close to 100 fighters, including some women. They range in age from 18 to 69. So there's a robust resistance within Iran. And I think that's the force, that's the actor that the international community should begin to engage and have dialogue with. And I think a lot of good will come out of it, instead of, for example, some of the coverage that the legacy media is giving to the son of the Shah, who was, of course, a brutal dictator himself. But of course, he really doesn't have any chances inside Iran because he doesn't have anything within the country. And he has never distanced himself from his father's atrocities. And his plan, basically, that he's proposed is the blueprint for neo-fascism, not democracy and pluralism.
So I have spent some time with the MEK, with your organization. My impression was this is a paramilitary organization. That you have something similar to like a UCMJ. I mean, you have a military structure. What do you say to all the people out there that are saying, "Oh, this is a Marxist cult. Don't deal with them." Blah blah blah.
Yes. Well, two things I think are ordered. Remember, the MEK is not a Sunday cafe club. It is a disciplined, organized, battle-tested, combat-ready force. And that is needed because you're facing such a formidable, ferocious enemy. And the fact that the organization has discipline does not make it a cult. Would you call the U.S. Marines a cult? Or other organized forces that naturally need to be organized and disciplined to be able to fight when needed? So no, the MEK isn't a cult. This is all part of a propaganda, a 30-year campaign of demonization and disinformation funded by the Iranian regime to imply that when it comes to the Iranian situation, there is no viable alternative. There's no legitimate alternative. And of course, if people buy that, then realpolitik would dictate that you deal with the status quo, which is with the mullahs of Iran. And unfortunately, that particular allegation, and the Marxist allegation, has been parroted by some armchair analysts inside the Beltway, whereas everybody knows that believing in God just doesn't reconcile with belief in Marxism. And of course, some Iranian academics who have studied the history of the MEK have said that this Marxist Islamist allegation was a phrase coined by the Shah's regime to undercut the MEK's popularity within the Iranian population, especially among the middle class and the bazaar. And indeed, the head of Shah's secret police, third directorate, SAVAK, his name is Parviz Sabeti, said in a recent interview that I coined that phrase, and of course, we used it against them, and the mullahs are doing the same thing, calling the MEK the hypocrite. So this is, by the way, Todd, is all old history. What it is that if there is a force within Iran that has the capability, the ability, and the willingness to stand up to the mullahs and to the IRGC is the MEK, whether we like them or not. And I think when you are thinking about what to do on the ground, this is the force to reckon with. And of course, as you may know, we have enormous international support from the Republicans and the Democrats, from folks associated with the current administration to the previous administration. So the recognition that this movement has, some 4,000 lawmakers around the world, some 125 former world leaders, and of course, among human rights community, within the Nobel laureates and so forth, it is, if you will, the government in waiting for Iran, and it is high time for the world to come to accept that. That has been, I think, from our perspective, the biggest impediment to change in Iran. And you know better than I that we, of course, have faced many obstacles in our struggle. You know, we were put on the terrorist list by the US, by the EU, by the UK, by France, and of course, it took a lot of resources from us, both financially, politically, and human-wise, to get off of those lists. And of course, courts ruled in our favor, all of them unanimously, that these are a group of patriots fighting to free their country. They're not a bunch of terrorists. And so that was one impediment. You know the story of Iraq, how a division is strong, army was disarmed, and you know they were under practical house arrest for so many years. Then through enormous effort, we managed to get them to Albania. And so you know the story. So in this sense, I think this is the biggest untold story about Iran and how change can be brought about in that country.
Have you had any connection, or not connection, but dialogue with the Trump administration?
As you may know, some of our friends out there, of course, have the administration's ear. And of course, our positions are also very well known. We are very open about where we stand on issues, both in terms of the domestic situation in Iran, in terms of the political situation in Iran. Just yesterday, there was a big conference here where a good many number of distinguished Americans and Europeans spoke. For example, Ambassador Kenneth Blackwell, some others, General James Jones, who, as you know, was the national security advisor, was the NATO commander, and many others, and of course some European former prime ministers. Actually, there were 3 prime ministers yesterday speaking, from Belgium, 2 from Iceland. We had several foreign ministers speaking, from Canada, John Bird, from Italy, Giulio Terzi speaking. So I think where we stand when it comes to Iran and with regards to regional issues, with regards to international issues, with regard to the Iranian nuclear weapons program and so forth, I think there's no ambiguity whatsoever as to what our position is. And I think the administration and others also know about that. It is just from our point of view, the question is whether they are willing to demonstrate the courage that has been lacking in the years past to step forward and associate themselves with the people of Iran and, of course, with the organized opposition, which would mark a tremendously important chapter in this saga, a 47-year saga. And I think that is the solution to the Iranian riddle that no Western government, no American president, no European leader has been able to solve so far.
What are the people on the ground saying to you? You have obviously forces on the ground. I mean, you're Iranian. Your organization is from the country, in the country. What are you hearing? And I know you're like a politician outside in Paris or Albania or whatever, but what are you hearing on the ground?
Well, I think there are 2 things to be said. One, I think the Iranian people are, instead of feeling gloom and grief as a result of the slaughter of thousands of people during the January uprising, they are filled with rage and resolve. That's the message that we are getting. They are ever more determined. And in fact, despite the fact that they are under a great deal of stress right now with, you know, the bombings. I've seen some of the videos of the bombing where, you know, people in the ordinary people walking in the streets, and when the missile hits, the shock, the wave, just,
Mhm.
of course, devastates people, civilian people. That is why Mrs. Rajavi has called on all parties to exercise restraint and do not target civilian structures and civilians. But I think they are ever more resolved. They know that this regime must go. When Khamenei was killed, and of course they installed his son. Actually, we call him now King Mojtaba Khamenei because he's the son of Khamenei. So we have now two, I guess, if you will, pretenders to the throne. One is Mojtaba Khamenei, and the other is Reza Pahlavi. And so, of course, the people, as you may have seen, did not show up for the celebrations after he was installed. There were very small crowds, most of them IRGC family members, others on the payroll of the regime, very small crowds. So the people are more determined than ever. And the resistance units are also very active. Just in the past week, they have carried out 60 operations in more than 30 cities across Iran against the IRGC, the Basij, and other repressive centers. Unfortunately, of course, mainstream media doesn't cover that, but be that as it may, we are quite confident that moving forward, that we can succeed with the help of the Iranian people to bring down this regime. And naturally, we expect that the international community, the US, Europe, others stand with us so that we can finish the job, because again, as I said, the responsibility to topple this regime rests only with the people of Iran and the organized resistance.
This is a special report. Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Ali Safavi, thank you very much. Really appreciate your time. We'll have you back.
Thank you very much, Todd. Grateful to be with you.